Welcome to the ISB Industry Leadership Series. I'm Ram Nidumolu, Professor of Organizational Behavior, Clinical at the Indian School of Business. And I have with me Mr. Sanjay Goel. And Sanjay is the Executive Vice President of American Tower Corporation and also the President of the Asia Pacific region. American Tower Company is almost a $10 billion company in terms of revenues with a market cap of over $100 billion, a large company, a large global company. And Sanjay is also a 20-year veteran of Nokia and has an undergraduate degree engineering in electronics and communication engineering from the Manipal Institute of Technology. And with that, let's begin the interview. Sanjay, we were talking about your leadership journey, and you were mentioning your experience at Nokia, the culture you were exposed to, and then the call came to you to come to ATC. Could we pick up from there? So what happened?
Yeah, no, thank you first of all for the opportunity. Great to be here. And I think it's been a fascinating journey. As I said, I had the privilege to work with great organizations and great leaders. And Nokia has been a great experience. And I've been there for 20 years, different parts of the world, very diverse opportunities. And so last year, I think it was 2021, beginning or 2020, and the opportunity came up, and the whole view was that, look, I've been in the telecom space for very long. I've looked at various aspects of the business, and the passive infrastructure one was that I had never dwelt into so much.
Okay.
It's a critical part of the telecom ecosystem.
Okay.
But for me, I'd never dabbled in that, so it was a great opportunity.
And so what is the passive versus the active
So if you take the whole value chain of telecom, right?
Yeah.
So you have, of course, the mobile operators that are providing the service to the consumer or the enterprises. Then you have...
And these are the Geos and the the Airtels and so on.
Okay. And then, of course, you have the active infrastructure providers, people like Nokia, Ericsson, who really provide the technology that enables the services that are given by the MNOs or operators. But that infrastructure, particularly the radio infrastructure that enables mobility and wireless connectivity, is all spread across the rural build, the urban build.
And these are the towers.
Yeah,
these
so
are the telecom
infrastructure,
towers.
that's called as passive infrastructure.
I see. Okay.
So American Tower is a leading independent owner, operator, and developer of multi-tenant telecom infrastructure assets. So we're a real estate company that manages this infrastructure for the telecom.
And what does multi-tenant mean?
So multi-tenant is simply about getting multiple operators to put their infrastructure. So we host their active infrastructure on our towers or infrastructure. So it's multi-tenant. So think of it like a simple three-story building or a four-story building where you have 4 tenants. So you put the infrastructure up that enables the wireless connectivity. But more than that, I think what it enables the telecom companies is to offload their capital expenses and focus on their core competency, which is all about providing the service to their customers. And we really outsource all of that to us so that we manage it on their behalf.
Okay. And you're like a shared services. You provide shared tenancy services.
Yes, exactly. So we, as I said, we own real estate, but we independently operate and develop that infrastructure also to cater to the changing technology needs. So for example, you have right now the telecom active infrastructure on a tower for 2G network. Then it moved to 3G. Then it moved to 4G, now to 5, and maybe in the future to 6. So how does the infrastructure evolve? So we constantly develop the infrastructure to be able to assimilate the new technologies that are coming in for the services to be provided seamlessly.
So you have to keep upgrading it, unlike a building which often stays like that for many years.
Yeah, because there are factors like how much weight is there, how much space is needed, how many antennas are connected, how many cables need to be rolled up. So all of that has to be catered. Then there are wind conditions, loading factor conditions that you could look at that the structure is able to sustain. And we also provide a certain uptime because that's a very critical part of any telecom ecosystem. For the operators to be able to give a seamless service, the network needs to be up and running, and therefore we operate and maintain the network to support the end game that the telcos are providing as a service.
Wonderful.
We operate in about 25 countries since our start in 1995. We have about 220,000 real estate sites globally.
Okay.
So we are an asset-based company that's looking at, how do we provide continuous value to our customers and to our shareholders.
Okay, wonderful.
So to me, that's been a journey that's now incubating, and we're now looking at saying, how do we, expand our business into Asia Pacific?
Okay.
We've got a large presence in India with about 75,000 towers. So that's a huge.
And how many employees typically?
I think we have close to about, totally about 1,800 along with our partners that we leverage to deliver our outcomes and services. That's kind of the size of the company.
Okay, wonderful. And maybe should we spend some time in terms of the business model for ATC? In terms of the purpose, let's begin with purpose. It's becoming important. What is the purpose of ATC, both at the narrower level and the broader level?
So at the very high level, I would say our purpose is really to connect everything, right? To provide connectivity where it is not reached right now. It is also about, looking at the digital divide that's there today.
Yeah.
How do you support that so that connectivity is seamlessly available to everyone?
Yeah.
Second, we believe is that this industry is very capital intensive. So we've got to drive economy of scale and synergies through this multi-tenancy approach that I talked about, because that will not just serve the overall sustainability agenda, but from an economic perspective, it makes it more viable for the full world to be connected.
Okay.
That's what really brings us to work every day.
Very interesting. And if ATC didn't exist, what difference would it make to society and people, let's say, in the rural areas where many of your towers are located?
Well, simply put,
what would happen?
If you so it would have been an economic issue for covering so many locations without multi-tenancy. And therefore, it would have slowed down the pace through which people would have been connected.
And made it more expensive?
More expensive, and less people would have been connected.
I see.
Right? Because you need that many more towers.
Yeah.
Whether we would have put or somebody else would have put.
Yeah.
We share the infrastructure.
Yeah.
So that makes it more economical.
You could almost say telecommunications is the lifeblood of the modern economy.
Absolutely.
Like and roads and water were before.
Absolutely. And it is going to be the linchpin also for the digital transformation of any business in the future or of a country for that matter.
And any region. That's right.
Any region, absolutely.
And you're right there in the middle of it.
Absolutely.
You are the foundation for it.
Absolutely.
Okay, very interesting. Yeah. So you mentioned 4G, 5G. Clearly everyone's talking about 5G and 6G later. What are the kinds of innovations that ATC has been involved in and what you are really pushing within ATC?
So if you date back to our history, right, we started in 1995. We started in the US, and then we progressed over 25 countries. So technology has, of course, gone from 2G to 3G to 4G to 5G.
Yeah.
But it's been on the same tower structure.
I see.
Right? So we've innovated for that infrastructure to be developed in a way that with very less amount of interruption, the technology assimilation has gone from one level to the other. That's one. We've looked at, of course, power is one of the big challenges in telecommunication because every radio site that radiates, it needs power, and that needs to be managed. So we focus a lot.
And these are often in hard to access areas.
Hard to access, there are a couple of problems, there are challenges. There are many locations where there's no electricity.
Right, yeah.
So you've got to, if there's electricity, it's great, but if it's not there, then you end up using diesel generator sets, which of course pollutes the environment.
Right.
So we try to work on power a lot to say what innovative solutions are there for renewable energy.
I see.
Wind or solar. Different techniques where we can conserve power or bring down the cost. When we operate and maintain these towers, we leverage technologies like drones, for example, to do site surveys. Drones to look at inspection of the towers. Drones to make out the whole structural drawings of the towers through photographs.
Which previously would require people to go there, travel there, do this.
Absolutely. So a lot of innovation happening also on those aspects. And I think the bigger thing is in the future, as we progress to 5G, 2 or 3 things are going to change, right? Now, if you look at 4G, today you use your phone. It serves your purpose for pretty much everything, email, applications. Your life is digital. The question to ask is then why do you need 5G?
And I was going to ask you, what is the big difference?
So
4G versus 5G?
So there are 3 differences, I guess. One is you're going to have more efficient cost structure for producing the same gigabytes of throughput on 5G versus 4G, significantly lower.
I see, which hopefully get passed on to the consumers.
Absolutely. Of course, this is not done by ATC. This is done, of course, by the companies like Nokia's and Ericsson's of the world. Second is, and the reason for that is data consumption is only increasing.
Yes.
Right? I mean, take for India, average user is about 15 to 20 GB per month.
Wow.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
And it's just been growing.
Yeah.
And that's going to continue.
Yeah.
So you need those networks which are more spectral efficient. So 5G is more spectrum efficient and cheaper to produce the same GB. That's the first thing.
Okay.
Second thing that 5G enables as a technology is low latency.
I see.
Now what it means in layman's terms is that it can enable a lot of remote operations, autonomous driving, applications that can go into managing an enterprise factory.
Where near real-time information is necessary.
Anything real-time that you need.
Real-time, okay.
Remote surgery as an example.
Yes, okay.
So those capabilities will come.
Yeah.
The third is massive IoT.
I see.
Which means
which is Internet of Things, these devices. Okay.
So what that will do is, and that will enable again things like smart city.
Okay.
It will enable complete digital assimilation of services.
Yes.
And then of course you have the application ecosystem that's evolving.
Okay.
And therefore I think our life's just going to change.
I see.
One of the other things of latency that's going to happen is that the compute will start to happen more where the actual data is.
I see.
So for example, if you have a car, and if you collect all the information and bring it back 200 kilometers and then take the action back,
it takes time.
The latency is too
much. Right.
So that means the processing of information will start moving to the edge.
Okay.
And that's where we see a role saying,
I see.
If the information is processed there, then you need infrastructure on the edge.
So you're closest to the edge in many ways.
Close to the edge. So how will that play out? Jury's still out on that.
Okay.
But that's where we believe that we're trying to innovate and work with a partner ecosystem to say, how will we play a role in the whole evolution of 5G?
What would 6G entail? Since everyone's talking of 5G, I guess the next is, what do you think 6G would mean?
Well, I think it's more about saying, okay, look, you have the speeds and you have the latency. Then I think it's going to be more about how an immersive and how AI-led engagements could happen, more local processing. I think the standards are still evolving and see where the potential is. But I really hope that at this stage, 5G becomes more economical and viable because each of these technologies have a life cycle. And I think while development on 6G is happening, I think we haven't even yet explored the full potential of 5G
itself. Now we talked of innovations. Now all these innovations eventually have to provide value to customers. Could you spend a minute or two on the customer value proposition?
So
who are your customers? What's the value you provide to them?
So our customers are, as I said, we have all the MNOs or mobile operators. They are really
mobile network
operators. They are our customers. The value proposition is very simple. We operate, build, and own these infrastructure. We drive co-location, which is multi-tenancy. Meaning you co-locate their infrastructure on our
along with others, along with other companies.
So you could have 3 operators on a single tower as an example. And the value proposition is that we build and operate these environments for them. And they pay us a rental fee pretty much on a monthly basis. So think of it like a building that is sold with 4 apartments and 4 tenants. That's really what it is. So we maintain and operate the infrastructure.
You own it. You rent it to them.
So look, there are 4 or 5 areas where we really have our core competencies. So as I said, one is we own these assets and we know for the last 25 years we've been managing this infrastructure. So we deeply understand the telecom ecosystem. That's one. We know how to manage the structural engineering of these towers. So simple things, right? So when you move from 2G to 3G to 4G, let's say the weight goes up from 100 kilos to 200 kilos. The structure has to be strengthened to make sure that it can take the loading. Space requirements could change. So we try to do it with minimum disruption to the operator to provide that service. We operate and maintain this network on a 24/7 basis to be able to deliver the SLA and uptimes that are required. So that's another value proposition. And towards that, we have good skills in not just operating and maintaining it or understanding the telecom ecosystem, but radio engineering is a very important aspect of this because where should the tower be located?
And there
we do have a lot of radio engineering skills.
For optimal efficiency. throughput and so on. I see.
Yeah, because you have to understand that there's only limited spectrum. Spectrum is the more scarce resource that the MNOs buy or from the government.
They have to operate within a bandwidth.
They have to operate. So
that's right.
that defines how the network should be designed.
I see.
So we work very closely with our customers to influence the network design, to match the tower footprint, to be able to get the best level of capacity and coverage that is needed. To make it most economical.
I see.
And then, of course, property and real estate management is our core, right? And it often is not probably shining through because that's one of the big elements of what keeps the infrastructure going.
In many ways, you could argue that's a very informal sector where you bring in some level of professionalism in terms of...
Yes, so where tower companies are not there, then the MNOs do it themselves.
They do it themselves, right?
But then the question to ask is, one, it's capital intensive. So we are saying offload your capital intensive. We may take care of the infrastructure on your behalf. Second, then of course they need a big team to operate and manage the property and the network. That's something we do. And when we are doing it for multiple players, of course, that's where the synergy comes in, the experience comes in. And for us, operating the towers and building is core for us. Right?
Which is not for them.
For them, it should be more that, well, this is hygiene for me. I have a partner who's so reliable that I can count on. And they can focus on their core, which is all about serving their customers.
Customer service.
Exactly.
Okay, very interesting. And so this is in terms of your value proposition. Do you see it evolving in the future? Are there any changes taking place in the next few years?
I think the business model in itself was very unique, right? And I think American Tower was one of the first to create this business model, right? Because it all started in the US, as I said, where the sharing concept started.
Came up,
And so the way we have evolved is that we've kind of gone to operators, worked with them to say, hey, if you have your assets, we can buy and lease them back to you. So that's been how we've grown.
And we'll also lease to others.
Of course, because our core is that it has to be multi-tenancy. Because if I just buy from you and then give it only back to you, it doesn't work for me. So I would be allowed to kind of lease it to anybody else. And that's what we do. Now in the future, as I said, 5G is going to change the landscape with what happens with data centers because you will need compute. So last year, American Tower acquired a company called CoreSite. It's a data center company, which is the regional data center company in the US. So we are looking at how could our company play a significant role in the future in this entire 5G ecosystem.
Right.
So things will evolve. And we really believe that with our positioning and the experience that we've had, that's a great opportunity for us to position ourselves for the future.